Thank you for coming to our Lunch and Learn today. My name is Kristen Strobey. I'm the Chief Program Officer here at WITS. I'm very excited and pleased to introduce Mashonda Rivera to you guys today. Mashonda is a state certified teacher and school administrator with over 20 years of experience in teaching, training, and conducting research and professional development in urban education settings. She is a current PhD candidate at Northwestern University in the School of Education and Social Policy, where her research involves improving educational and social outcomes for culturally diverse students through the lens of school-community partnerships. A native Chicagoan and a product of the Chicago Public Schools, Mashonda is often involved in multiple efforts throughout the city to improve not only education, but cultural relationships across multiple people groups. She has co-authored a book on literacy, Other People's English, Code Meshing, Code Switching, and African American Literacy, which was published in 2014. So with that, I will turn it over to Mashonda.
Hi everybody. And my name is actually, as if you're asking a question, is Mashonda. It's not your fault. I'm called Mashonda, Lil Shonda, all kinds of things, but it's actually Mashonda. So I'm going to ask you to help me out again as I start by I need 4 people at a table. That will make my activity work a whole lot better. So if you're at 5, can you make a new table so that we can have no more than 4 people at a table? And for those of you who already have 4 people, if you look, you have a little packet there. If each of you could take one of the alphabets and hold on to it for a minute. And if we need to start a new group here, this table is open as well.
Thank you. No, I'm there.
Okay. And if anyone late comes in, we'll have them to take one here so they can still participate. So good morning or good afternoon again. I'm really not a stand next to the laptop type person, but we don't have a clicker, so I have to kind of stay close to click in order to move on to the next slide. But as she told you, I'm Mashonda Rivera. I am a PhD candidate from Northwestern University after a 20-year career in education as a teacher and an administrator. I did something brave and went back to school to get my PhD. So I'm about toward that last phase. I'm thinking I got a year and a half left before I actually finish my dissertation. So what we're going to do today is, I'm giving you a little overview. We're going to have an activity, which you already are set up for. Then we're going to define some important terms together. Then we're going to talk about these things called ecologies and look at them within scenarios. You can have a seat at this table right here. We can form a new set of 4s if you want. We're going to talk about something that I like to do every time I have a presentation, and that's to introduce something that I call the real dichotomy, and then we're going to summarize some takeaway strategies. So the activity we're going to do right now, everybody has an alphabet, right? I want you to take your alphabet. You can only have one. You're not going to talk to anyone at your table. You're going to read what you have, and you're going to answer your question and close it back up. And then I'm going to wait until it looks like I have everyone's attention, and we are going to... Don't share with anybody anything that's on your paper. Read it, write your answer, and then we're going to talk through something. Yes. And when you write your answer, close back up so that you can see your alphabet, so that when I'm calling on your alphabet, you're able to respond. I got have a few more people that I'm waiting on. Okay, so it's important that you only answer during when I'm speaking to your group, okay? So we're gonna start this way. Group A's, where are you? Okay, Group A. Can you tell me, just say it out. Who is Jason? Speak it out. I'm not, just speak it out. I want to hear what you're saying.
I wrote my son.
Okay.
Student, teacher, administrator.
Okay. Okay. Group B. Where are you?
Oh wait, oh no.
Okay, Group B. Who's Jason?
The principal.
I study their student or teacher.
I feel a student ready for summer.
Okay.
Is it student?
Group C. Who's Jason?
Principal.
Principal?
I said teacher's aide.
Teacher's aide. Okay, Group A. Where are you again? Group A. Any thoughts going through your mind as you hear these other people answer? Anybody from Group A has a thought going through their mind by any chance? Yes, Brittany.
I thought teacher just because it.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you. I'm gonna stop you. You thought teacher.
Yeah.
Are you thinking any other thoughts as you hear what the other people are saying?
No.
No other thoughts? Okay. Yes.
Jonathan.
Jonathan.
It seemed like everyone had something similar regardless of the group.
Jonathan, what letter are you?
A.
A also? Okay. Any thoughts? You're saying what?
I said teacher as well, and then I heard when you said some of the other letters, I heard teacher, student.
So you think something's going on here? That's it. Okay. And last, D. Where are you? Who's Jason?
Janitor.
Jason is probably one of the school's custodians or an OCD.
Okay. B. What are you thinking about D's answer? Anybody? Group B. What are you thinking?
You think I got it wrong.
You thinking maybe you got it wrong? Anybody else from B thinking about what D has just answered?
I don't know. I feel like you got the same descriptions.
And what group are you from? B. You're from B. You feel like we got the same descriptions, yet can you tell me what are you thinking about when you think about what D just said?
Just probably something a little extra was added that we didn't have.
Okay. Cool, you guys are great. I wish kids were like this all the time. Okay, so this activity is called Who is Jason? Now what we're actually going to do is I'm going to show you something. This is what Group A had. Group A had 6:15 a.m. Jason moans as his alarm sounds. Just 5 more days before the school year is over, Jason is comforted by the thought. And I predicted that you would say some of these things, and I kind of predicted pretty good. Some of you said it was a student, a teacher, principal. Did anybody say parent? I put that on there just in case.
I was just thinking about parents.
You were thinking about a parent, so I was thinking, had some forethought about that possibility. So Group B had what Group A had, but they had another sentence that said, yesterday, Ms. Moon in room 402 told him that she was going to be absent today. Again, asking, some of you did say teacher, administrator, and I left question marks about the possibility of what else you all could say. Group C then had this extra line added in. Ugh, when teachers are absent, it's like the students go wild. So Group C kind of stuck, so I didn't know what you would say. So I said probably teacher, administrator, put a question mark again, and then Group D was given this last line. No one thinks about keeping, sorry about the double the, no one thinks about keeping the classroom clean. Group D, where are you? Is there anybody from Group D that had a different answer? What did you have?
Oh, no, I did not.
You did not. What did you have?
I still thought it was the sheriff.
And I didn't know what you guys would think, so I put a whole bunch of question marks. But I'm going to help you bring this story together by giving you the absolute last line. And the absolute last line is, which means that Jason and his cleaning crew are going to have to spend extra time cleaning room 402 at the end of the day. So by the time we got to Group D, they had enough information to be able to deduce that who was Jason? He was a part of the cleaning staff or a part of the janitorial staff. So, sorry about this, I have to kind of stay close. I want us to talk about what was actually going on through this activity, okay? So I'm gonna take us back to this first line. We're saying Jason had his alarm clock, it was 5 more days. All of us had this sentence. Does anybody want to tell us what they feel like was happening when they had to answer? Group A, if you want, you could actually be the ones to answer. What was going on as someone from Group A, as you were figuring out, how do I decide who Jason is? Yes?
My first thought was, most kids don't use an alarm, their parents wake them up. And then my parents are both teachers, and as much as they love to teach, they look forward to the summers.
So you
I
thought
teacher.
You thought teacher. Anybody else who thought yes?
Well, my kids who just started college now, they did use their phones to wake themselves up, and I would hear the moaning and the complaining as soon as, so that resonated immediately, like these are my kids, and they can't wait until school's over. So the other possibilities would have been there if I didn't correlate it so closely with my experience.
Okay, so I'm gonna pull this up, and you might have heard this terminology before. We're all pretty smart. Schema. Schema is the mental frameworks that we use to make understanding of the things that are going on, to connect, to frame what is happening. And all of us, every single group, A, B, C, and D, when we first read sentence 1, we looked and we all, somehow, some way, what schema was awakened for something related to what? School, right? You saw the school, somebody moaning, alarm clock, but now we all didn't come down to the same answer because Brittany related it to her parents. And I can't see your name, Lisa. Lisa related it to her son, but using the schema in which they was enacted, they each made a decision about who Jason was. Now, if we look at the second group B, what happens for you here? When you second sentence. Yes.
I thought it was a student who really didn't care for the teacher, so.
You thought it was a student who didn't care for the teacher. Did this throw anybody off who thought it was a parent or a student? What could have possibly thrown you off about this? Yes.
I'm sorry, Tracy.
Tracy.
Well, I assumed it was that somebody who doesn't work in 402, like somebody who's outside or above any particular classroom.
Okay. Sue, did you have an answer?
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought at first it was a student, and when I kept reading, I thought it was an administrator who would know what the teachers are doing.
Okay, so we had our schema activated, the way that we mentally organize things, and then script is a particular type of schema that tells us exactly how we are expecting a particular event to go, just like a play. Everybody has a script, we have our parts that we read, and we expect it to go that way. And depending on the things that have happened in our life or things that have gone on, we had a particular script of what should be happening in school. And for some people, line 2 threw that script off. And it made them initially, if they thought it was a parent or a teacher, they had to kind of rearrange things because this wasn't following the script. Why would Miss Moon in 402 tell whatever? And so it continues to go. And then this next line comes in, and at this point we usually start to question. We start questioning, we're trying to place, how does this all fit together? You get the next line, you're questioning again, you're trying to fit this all together, and then right at the end, if you hadn't figured it out there, I was able to give you this last part. Now I'm going to tell you in 1 minute how all of this has anything to do with this whole volunteer thing that we're talking about today. But before we do that, I have these these 5 words that I would like you to talk about at your table together. Take 3 minutes, look at these 5 words and talk amongst yourself. What comes to your mind when you think of these 5 words? What comes to mind? Talk amongst yourself. I'll just kind of be walking around listening.
But I think it's really much broader than differences between people.
Diversity and culture, definitely affecting practices and the learning influence. When I look at all of these words, I think about like empathy. Have like a clear understanding of like all of these, but they're looking at us. You know, it's hard to be like, empathetic. I mean, that's my experience, and not in my. You can't have one without the other. Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yes. Yes. I mean, very. It is complex when you think about especially living in a city like Chicago, the complexity of community that all of these different when I think about diversity, we don't think about trying to encourage students and not be gender and understand about it.
Okay, we're going to kind of pull back together. And as I walked around, I actually heard some really great answers. So I actually would like this table here to tell me this connection that I heard you guys talking about these words, and then I'll move on to the other tables. But what were you guys saying over here?
Well, I started out by just saying that all those words just seem so broad and then indefinable. Like it just was overwhelming to see that list. And like, what do we talk about when you talk about those things? They're all just they're just huge words. And then I think then the others started to kind of break it down word by word.
It depends on who you ask, really, I think, in some ways, because culture is behavior norms for your group. Diversity now is sort of a keyword for different races, different languages, different SES levels, different genders,
Okay, anybody has anything else they want to build off of in their comments? You guys okay? Okay, you're right. They're so broad, they're so big, they mean so many different things to so many different people that I felt it was important that we define these words from the context in which we're going to be looking at them today. And so when we think of diversity, I took this definition from the National Education Association. And the first part was that they say diversity is the sum of the ways that people are both alike and different. And if I told you right now in your mind, bring forth a picture of what diverse looks like. Everybody kind of got a picture in their mind. Can somebody tell me what their picture looks like?
Coke commercial.
Yes.
It's a small world.
It's a small world. Anybody else?
Look at textbook photo.
Textbook photo.
Like you have one of every nationality, different genders, different abilities. Yeah.
Did anybody notice in their picture whether white people were in the diverse group or not?
Yeah.
Because some people, when they think diverse, they think everybody except white. But if we're talking, no, I'm serious. I've asked that question, and they've seen everybody, and they've seen white as other. And that's why I'm asking you to recall that picture, because diverse is the way in which we're all maybe alike, the some ways, or different. Yes?
Well, one thing about stock photos and those kinds of things, when you have a diverse group, everybody has you know, clothes that are very, I guess, you know, white. Can I say it?
Go right ahead.
You know what I mean? It's just blah, nothing that would actually tell you anything about that particular race or whatever. So, I mean, I think sometimes they want it to be a leavening thing or a leveling thing.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you to expound. No, I'm going to ask you to expound on that so that I'm not interpreting what you're meaning, that I'm allowing you to say exactly what you're meaning.
Because I think some people are threatened by diversity, by true diversity. And so they have to make it palatable.
And they make it palatable by
making it look like suburbia or something. That's what I'm, in stock photos.
in stock photos. You see how she makes sure she.
Well, you know, that's sort of for broader consumption.
Yes, yes. No, I totally agree. I'm just making sure that I'm allowing you to say that. And I really applaud your bravery. We haven't even set any kind of norms or anything, but you've decided to step a little bit in. I know, right? You get old enough and you're like, come on. But I'm making sure that we're on the same page. And so in our definition of diverse, we mean everyone. There isn't an other. And showing a great deal of variety. When we think of culture, and some of these things are very intentional because of this particular workshop that we're doing, that I've chosen these definitions. And this comes from the Center of Research for Language Acquisition. And it says culture is shared patterns of behavior and interactions, cognitive constructs, remember us talking about schemas and scripts, and effective understanding that are learned through a process of socialization. So we're going to keep these things in mind. Context, the circumstances that form the setting for the event, statement, idea, in terms of which we can fully understand and assess what's going on. Learning, this is a definition that I've, as an educator myself, I found this, it's a process. Learning is a process that ultimately we're looking to lead to change, which occurs as a result of experience, and it increases the potential of improved performance and future learning. We never stop learning, ever. It's a process. And then influence is the ability to have that power to have an important effect on someone or something. So now we get to this big question. Language, yes?
My picture of diversity is the closing ceremony of the Olympic Games.
Oh, yeah. That was really nice. Great example. So we have learning, we got culture, we got context. Mine, it's coming a little slow up there. We got scripts, we talking about schema, diversity, influence. What does all of this have to do with you guys volunteering, right? So I'm gonna show you a clip. And this young lady, whom I really admire, is actually my, no internet? Is this it? Okay, sorry, you know, stuff like this always happens. So it's the Literature Center, and we are CA770F, the Wi-Fi. See if we're on. And as this is coming up, this wonderful young lady oversees Barbara Sizemore Charter Schools, and she's actually my advisor. And now, let me see if I can pull this over for you guys. And have you, okay, give me 1 second, sorry about that. I gotta pull this back so that I can see for a minute. We're okay with this, are we not? I didn't expect this too. Okay, there we go. And I know she's going to use the terminology teacher, but
the knowledge that I have about human learning about what's entailed in learning complex subject matters is that you could take me and I could go work on a Navajo reservation. I could go work in the Mississippi Delta. I could go work in Appalachia. I can go west side of Chicago where I grew up, because I understand that the cultural competence means that I have to go into that community with a humility in order to learn, as opposed to saying that there's a college program that's going to give me a box, because that's the way this stuff works, that there's a box of stuff. And if I teach you that box of stuff, right, so there's the urban box, and inside the urban, there's an urban file cabinet, and inside the urban file cabinet, there's a folder for the African Americans, and there's a folder for the Latinos. Now what you do with the Black Latinos, that becomes another interesting question. You know, you got a folder for the Asian Americans, but it doesn't make a difference whether you're Hmong or Chinese American or first generation or fifth generation. So there's a sense in which so much of the attention to notions of cultural competence in preparation for teaching in urban areas reinforces certain kinds of stereotypes about what you think you're supposed to do or see when you get there. And my question always becomes, what are the underlying assumptions about attempts to prepare young, often white middle-class females, more often than not, to work in urban communities?
And I like to show that. I know she's talking about teachers, but I like to show that because she has, as I said, she's my advisor, and she oversees several Afrocentric, culturally themed schools on the south side of Chicago. And the thing that I like to show about that for volunteers is there isn't a box. So you didn't come here for a box, I didn't come here to give you a box, but we came to talk through and process some of the things that occur, some of the things that we bring with us when we are in these interactions, not only just with children, but with others from other walks of life who are different from us. So I always like to start with that to put that out there. This isn't a box, I don't have these things to teach, but we're going to highlight and talk and bring out an awareness of what's actually going on when we interact with each other. And so I want to bring this up. Worlds. And I'm using your, but this can go for any of us, including myself. So we all have this world, this daily world in which we exist in. And as we look back, when we talked about those schemas and those scripts, it's the way that we expect things to go because of the way that we've encountered them before, or the way that we've read about them or heard about them. We expect those things to happen, and that's how we make sense of the world. That's how everybody makes sense of the world. That's a very base thing, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The thing that we have to be aware of, and I heard someone talking at the table then, I thought that was really great insight. And so we know all this stuff, but it's good when we come together and we remind ourselves that when we go into these volunteer worlds and spaces, those things don't turn off. It's not like, okay, I'm in this world, and now this, back in this world. No, those things carry with us, and we bring them into the context of the places where we are. And unfortunately, some of those things contain stereotypes or biases. Notice I'm not saying racism or heavier words of that, no. I'm just talking about things like biases, stereotypes. We have them. I have them, you have them, and we bring them into the context of these worlds when we enter into them. And so, we need to be aware of this. Okay, and so that's the reason why I showed, I'm gonna pull this up. We can only bring into a situation what we know. Like when we were going through the Jason activity. Group A only had so much information based upon what they knew. They decided who was Jason. B had a little bit more. Based upon what they knew with a little bit more, they made a decision, and so on and so forth. But we have to remember that sometimes what we know, it can be incomplete or it can be ill-informed. But it may simply be our experience. It doesn't make it right or wrong. It's just good to be aware. right? And then lastly, questions are a great way to open doors for learning and growth. Not statements, not prejudgments, questions. Someone over there said, she says, I think they may have more information than we have. Or someone else said, I think we kind of got the same thing that's going. We were formulating, trying to say what's going on, that there's some relationship here. So I want to introduce what I would call takeaway one. And I'm going to use what Dr. Carol Lee was the lady who I was speaking to. When you go into these places, we know this, again, I'm reiterating, get to know the people, the places, and the environments in which you're entering to volunteer. And when you do that, remember, only bring what I know. And we're going to talk about the fact that they only bring what they know as well. And then what we know could be incomplete. It could be ill-informed. Questions open the door. And I don't know how many of you may have ever heard of this, but this is Grafenbrenner's. He has this theory of ecological systems, and he says that we have to understand we have this child right there in the center, but the child is composed of a whole bunch of other systems and things that have interacted and that the child has interacted with to make him who he is. So we have to remember the systems mindset when we're interacting with one another. Now, Grafenbrenner brought this up like in 1970s, and at the time they realized it was not really culturally specific. It was set with a particular white middle-class mindset, and so I had to have the privilege of working with this professor right now, some work that I'm doing, and her name is Dr. Margaret Bill Spencer from the University of Chicago, and she took the systems theory and she elaborated it from a phenomenology where it's about the experience, because Vietnam War, for some people it might have meant absolutely nothing. But the way someone else was affected or processed what happened in the Vietnam War, it matters. And all these things that work together, they form who we are. If we have terrible incidents, sometimes, and I'm not going to go too detailed because I just like to throw this in so you can see where I'm coming from when I start talking about the children. But kids, they experience certain risks. And that makes them vulnerable. They've interacted with certain situations in a certain way for so many times that now they've built up a way in which they cope and react toward those situations. And over time, that stabilizes into who they become. Why is Johnny always mad? Well, every time Johnny comes here, X happens. So over time, Johnny just expects that this happens, our schemas and scripts, remember? This happens, so this is how I'm going to react. This is how I'm going to react. This is how I'm going to react. This is what I expect. And over time, we say, oh, Johnny's the troublemaker. Who are we identifying him as? How he's had to cope and react during these times. And so I want you, really quickly, with a partner at your table, I want you to partner up and tell somebody about your most memorable and your least memorable learning experiences. Oh, wow. Take a few minutes. I know it's been some time for me and some of us, but see if you can call that up and talk to each other about it.
And I felt like it created a real culture in our class that was sharing with each other and just putting our feelings and I thought that's something that I really remember that I felt like created a nice space for us to start our day.
Okay, I'm going to direct you to let the other person get a turn because we don't really have like a whole lot of time, so kind of let the other person get a turn. Okay, we're gonna pull each other back right now. I recognize we start talking about those great memories, and we can go on and on. And I'm going to ask this table over here to actually have someone from over there to share one of your most memorable learning experience. You guys can choose whomever you want.
I mean, my most memorable were when I deliberately, I was always a rebel, and I knew that I grew up in boxes, right, or cultural context. So my most memorable experience is when I chose early on at 17 and then at 22 to leave my family, my country, and my culture. And so at 17 I went to live with a French family for a year, and then in my early 20s I became a Peace Corps volunteer and was assigned to a West African country for 2.5 years. So I quickly found myself where I was not like everybody else. Unlike what people on the street here would look at me like, oh, he's just one of the majority, right? But they have no clue that I've spent a lot of years of my life living in places where I was very much not in the majority, and where I didn't know what to expect or how to react, and I had to learn whole different ways of being. So, yeah.
And so, Peter, when people meet you, you kind of mess up their script a little bit, don't you? Okay. Okay. Anybody else memorable? Anybody else want to tell me one of their memorable experiences? Yes.
Our table actually kind of talked about how memorable we remember the traumatic stuff more than we remember some of the good stuff. So I've always been a people-pleasing kid, always well-behaved, but really wanted to talk to my friend the first day of kindergarten. And the teacher didn't give me a whole lot of patience, put me in timeout in the corner, proceeded to tell the rest of the class for minutes after what a bad girl I was. Good kids didn't behave like this. Everything that happened after that week was blamed on me, whether I was close or not. So yeah, that was the script for how well I liked the teacher at the beginning of the year. It was a script for yeah, how like the box that she put me in, the box that I put her in, like it took a long time to change. But yeah, we didn't come up with very many positive stories.
Can we have one positive from that group? Any? I'm a teacher. I want to know if you had something positive happen.
Yeah.
Any small, no matter how small. I got a star when I did my homework. Anything? Okay.
No, I mean there would be plenty. On the other side of it, a couple of years later, I had a teacher that recognized that I loved creative writing and would let me write plays for the class. That we pick roles for each other, and then we perform it for another class.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, what's that teacher's name? What's that teacher's name?
Mrs. Waltz.
And you remember Miss Waltz to this day, right? Yes, you do. Okay, one more negative. Anybody has a negative experience? Or least memorable, let's put it that way. Nobody?
Yeah, we actually had similar least memorable experiences where it was more a subject matter that just didn't connect with us and we just couldn't get, despite the efforts of teachers and TAs. Mine was computer programming.
Yeah, mine was learning Spanish, which I had to do to get into graduate school, and like it was like my brain wouldn't work.
Yeah, it was like my brain just would not go there.
Wow. Now, I find it very interesting. I like Peter's story. Do you notice that Peter's talked about learning experience that actually did occur in class? So learning isn't just, sometimes I don't get someone who talks about learning outside, but to understand that learning is a process and it doesn't only happen in the classroom. But I put these notes here because I figured this would come up, and I'm gonna go on. I have a teacher, and I always talk about him whenever I can get a chance. His name is Mr. Bazile. And really quickly, just to tell this story, when I started high school, I was like in one of the top high schools, did great, but when I got to algebra, for some reason, when I saw this, I don't know what in the world was going on, and then I would make this equal that. And I did that all freshman year, and you know what I got at the end of freshman year? I got a big fat F. That was the first F I had ever gotten in my life, and I was devastated. And I do not recall, for the life of me, the teacher ever engaging me around why I continued to do that. I don't ever recall it. And during my time, we had the option. You can go the math science track, or you can go literacy or language or arts. And guess what I did? I ran as far away from math and science as I could. Lo and behold, come senior year, counselor calls me in. Mashonda, I know you're not the math track, science track, but you gotta pass at least 1 year. You gotta retake that algebra. And of course, how do you think I was feeling? Terrified. You needed to get in graduate school. I needed to graduate from high school. And thank God who hears prayers up in heaven above, because he sent Mr. Bazile. And Mr. Bazile, I always say this, through his monkeys and his jackasses. These are his words. We would be in class, or he would have a conference with me, and he would be, "Why, Shonda? These are monkeys with the monkeys and the jackasses with the jackasses. You don't create a new group of monkey jackasses. The monkeys must stay together. The jackasses must stay together." And by the end of that class, I had an A, and I was tutoring other students because Mr. Bazile helped me to see, keep my monkeys with my monkeys and my jackasses with my jackasses. And you know what? Me encountering Mr. Bazile that way, he gave me a new script for teachers. Mr. Bazile was gay. Back in that time, nothing big or popular. He gave me a new script for gays. Mr. Bazile gave me a new script for myself when it comes to math, when it comes for what kind of student. That devastated me. And so when we think about this, if we go back to that Bronfenbrenner and that PVEST model, these students that we interact with, they come with a whole bunch of different other contexts that they bring. And then when they engage with you, you speak into that context. And you give them that ability to rewrite it, right? And so I want to point this out. This is something heavy, but I felt I wanted to show it. African Americans right now, this is a reality of.
We actually have a line that we do at our house. We practice this thing. What is it?
I'm Ariel Sky Williams. I'm 8 years old. I'm unarmed and I have nothing that will hurt you.
It's just kind of a thing we practice at our house. There are great police officers out there. There's also some police officers who are not so good.
And my fear is that you run across one of those bad ones.
For some reason, people of color have always been targeted by the police.
Before they became a policeman, they were a person. And that person took all their ideas and all their thoughts and all their prejudice into their job. Why would a police officer assume that you did something bad? Maybe because of my skin color.
I remember being put in handcuffs for something that had nothing to do with me. I was literally walking in the mall. Cops slammed me on the ground, busted my lip, chipped my tooth. That actually made me really mad.
How about the time they pulled us over with me in the car and arrested me and left all of you guys sitting in the car and nobody knew how to drive on the side of the road because the bumper on the car was kind of hanging off? You know, we live in Puyallup. There's people that don't even have a bumper on their car.
My rear brake light wasn't working and I got to my destination and they were working.
I was about your age, actually. They grabbed me.
Why?
I didn't know at the time. They just grabbed me. They threw me onto the police car.
I got tased that time. That time they tased me because they said I wasn't complying.
Ariel, are you okay?
What's wrong with
I'm okay. I'm alive, all right? Every day I get to see you. I get to do that strap. All right, come on. Let's calm down. Let's finish this, all right? You good? Hey, you make me cry. Come on.
You have to be careful when you're out there in this world because this world's not going to always be honest or fair to you. I know, Sean, you got a little bit lighter than the rest of them, so it's a possibility you won't get stopped.
Sound like you just pulled him over.
If you're driving, cop pulls you over?
Police gets out the car, comes to the window, tuk, 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 tuk. What would you do?
License and registration, please, ma'am.
Why do you think I pulled you over? I don't know, tell me.
When a police officer says something you don't, you're black. You can't be looking at them saying, oh, I don't know, why don't you tell me? Well, that right there is giving them the license to pull you out of your car and physically harm you, because it will be done.
Don't get upset, don't get sassy. Why did you pull me over? You don't have, I know how, just follow instructions and stay calm.
Okay. Do you think just being a police officer and pulling you over, regardless of if you feel you've done something or not, they should get your respect?
That's a tricky question.
The answer is yes.
Yes. If you gotta go to your wallet to get your IDs today, can I go reach in my back pocket to get my ID out? You could do what I do, and I show them my hands, so when they're walking up, they see I don't have anything in my hands.
I'm Earl Sky Williams, and I have nothing that will harm you or hurt you.
And what's the next place you put your hands when you're driving? Or on the steering wheel, with your hands out?
If at all possible, turn your phone on
and call someone and put it on speaker.
But whatever you're doing, I want you to say what you're doing before you do it.
You don't write any statements.
Well, you have to write a statement.
You don't have to write anything. You're a minor. I'm responsible for you. No one can tell you anything else.
If it tells you to be quiet, be quiet. Do everything that you can to get back to me. I see it weighing on you, and I don't want it to weigh on you. I'm just worried about Donovan. I'm worried about him now.
Who are you guys talking about?
My nephew and her cousin. I don't want him to be shot. I don't want him to go to jail.
You guys, if you could say anything to police, what would you say?
Learn about people, learn about their problems.
Take some diversity training. I mean, it should be like at this point, like a monthly requirement.
You know, there's really nothing at this point that they can do that would make me feel any safer with them without them just point blank clearing them all out and starting all over from scratch.
So don't always assume that all of them are bad.
But all you see on the news and in newspapers, and it keeps happening. It's just in a different way. It's like how people are like, you should forgive so-and-so, but they keep doing it to me. I forgave them, but they keep doing it to me. It gets harder and harder to forgive them.
Wow.
Okay, so that is a real context in which any African, even if they're from different classes, just the fact when you're talking about skin color and the things that are going on in society, those kind of conversations and things are happening in the homes of African American children. And they don't leave their context outside of the school when they walk in. So they're bringing some of these other things. And the other thing that I wanted to pull out was, this is going on in terms of like the immigration. I saw this the other day, and I'm not gonna pull up the thing because I'm aware of time. We have 8 minutes, so I'm gonna kind of start moving really fast right now. But immigration issue. Students haven't been coming to school because they've been afraid. Schools that have been at 97 and 98% are down to 90 because kids are afraid that they come home. Yes?
My 4th grade student who I read with said she was very scared. She didn't know in January what was going to happen.
Yes.
Her mom and dad were really scared.
Yes, and these are schemas and scripts that these children are bringing that are happening to them in their world. And one of the persons who was recorded said teachers are reporting a really high level of anxiety, which you just talked about one of your students. And this is a real fear. This is not a hype. They are living, breathing teenagers. This is not a story on CNN. They are the teens who sit in front of us every single day. And I think I'm gonna wrap this up with this next slide and a thing that I want us to look up. And this is old as punch. You know, every single one of us know about Maslow, but Maslow has never changed. We can't get to these things up here unless we are dealing with and attending to these things here. And you know what, when you go into a school and you're volunteering, I can tell you this, but I say it with the understanding that you have to listen to what's going on in the school, in the context. But the teachers are charged with the educational things. When you can come in and you can help address some of these things, that lays a foundation where they can do other things. So sometimes just reading a good book, sometimes just letting a young kid tell you about, I'm scared, my mother, just, you're already dealing with all these other things out here. And another way that I won't even go through, but sometimes you come in school, you face those same things. When you go in there, you might be the opportunity, not might be, you are the opportunity to help the kids write a different script for how they might encounter a white person, how they might encounter a black person, a Muslim, a Christian, how they might encounter a gay person, how they, remember that. And I love to say, and I'm gonna rush through it, I'm gonna get to this point because I love to bring this up. And, sorry about that. And we're gonna look at something. We co-create culture, and this is takeaway 2. Kind of rushing because I'm mindful. Be the good and the positive, and then spread the good and the positive. The reason why I want to say that, there was a study that found they had these people in groups, and then they sent them off to play games with people who were different from them. Maybe race or religion or something like that. And then they played the game, and they came back to their same group. And do you know that when they came back to the same group and they talked in a positive way about the people whom they were different, it spread among themselves. Yeah. And so that's why I make use of this. So in those spaces, be the good and the positive, and then go back and spread the good and positive. You know, maybe Jimmy didn't smell so fresh today, but maybe he read that book out the box when you read, you know, I was with this little kid and he's in 2nd grade and he was reading like a 5th grader today. So that's what I mean by that take away. And then, I always love this. I always say this in every presentation that I go to. We always think it's us, them, this, that. I always like to present this real dichotomy. And I say what it really is a question that we always have to ask ourselves in every encounter and interaction that we have. This is the dichotomy. Will I build up or will I break down? Will I help write a new script for what they know about this, or will I tear down or continue to negatively impact in a different way? You're volunteers. I know you're doing what you're doing. Nobody's paying you for this. You're loving it. And so taking it away from here, and this is the last story that I'm going to do it from up here because I just think it's so amazing. It's another thing I found on Facebook, but I love to show. And we got 4 minutes left. But I'm a teacher, mindful of time. And it's this. How many of you have seen that? Yeah. Have you seen it? Okay, I have them copied just in case because I know it's kind of hard to see. So I'm going to put it at the table. And if you haven't seen it, read it really quickly. And any extras here for this table? And this story is from a cop, and I'm just gonna use it and we're gonna wrap up today. And he says how he pulls over his car last night for texting and driving. And when he went to talk to the driver, he was a white cop, he found a young black man. He was looking at me like he was absolutely terrified with his hands up. Remember the young girl on the movie, the thing with her dad? Families are talking about these things. Hands were up. So, and so great to know that the cop recognized he was absolutely terrified. He was texting, he was breaking the law. Right then and there, I mean, the cop had every right to give him a ticket, but right away he noticed he was absolutely terrified. He says, "What do you want me to do, officer?" This is a young man. "What do you want me to do, officer?" Officer noticed his voice was quivering. He was genuinely scared. And he says, "I just looked at him for a moment because what I was seeing was making me sad." And I said, "I just don't want you to get hurt." As an officer, texting and driving is dangerous. Son, I don't want you to get hurt. That could have went a whole different way, depending upon how the officer allowed himself to be encountered with this young man. And then the young man replied with his voice still shaking, "Do you want me to get out of the car?" You know, I'm sure, I'm telling you, this is going on in families. He's following the script. "Do you want me to get out of the car?" "No, I just don't want you to text and drive. That's what I want. You're breaking the law. You're putting more people in danger." And he says, "And I don't want you to get in a wreck. I want your mom to always have her baby boy. I want you to grow up, and I want you to be somebody. I don't even want to write you a ticket. Just please pay attention and put the phone down. I just don't want you to get hurt. I cried the first time I read this. I was just like, oh my goodness. It was overwhelming. And then he adds at the end, he says, I don't care whose fault it is that young man was so scared to have a police officer at his window. You can blame it on the media. You can blame it on bad cops. You can blame it on protesters, Colin Kaepernick, if you want. It doesn't matter to me who's to blame. I just want somebody to fix it. And I end with saying this, we can fix it. The way that we allow ourselves to be encountered when not just children of different races, ethnicities, or religions, but each other. We know we're living in a hot political bed right now that most of the time somebody's over here and and somebody else is there. We're not going to accomplish anything that way. We all come to situations knowing what we know. But if we think about, maybe my knowledge is ill-formed, it's incomplete. Maybe there's an opportunity for me to co-create something different within this context. If we come with, will I build up or will I break down? Maybe we can be part of those who fix it. So thank you so much. It is 1 o'clock. I'm a hugger.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a hugger. I hug people. I hug children.
I do too. I do accept hugs. Yes, thank you guys for coming. I do want to make an announcement. Next month, April, is Volunteer Appreciation Month, and we will be hosting a volunteer game night here at the Litter Center on April 27th from 5 to 7. You will receive more information from your program managers, your coordinators in the future, but keep that on your calendar. Grab some food on your way out. Thank you. And another round of applause for Mashonda.
And if you have any questions, I'll be around in a few minutes. Bye.
Thank you.
I'm here.
Have a good day.